Chapter 5. "You were an absolute genius," sounded a familiar raspy voice. "How's it going, Mr. Coons?" Turning to smile at her mentor, Avery kept her hands in contact with the cool, smooth clay. "I thought you weren't going to be here today." "Jury duty can't keep me out of this place all day," he chuckled as he approached from the door. "Did you go dressed like that?" Avery commented as she continued smoothing the edges on the face of her newest creation. "So my superhero t-shirt and board shorts aren't quite doing it for you, are they?" "Oh, they are. And the flip-flops." "Well, they did make me wear a tie." "Then it seems you perform your civic duty in style," Avery laughed. "You know it. So how are things going?" Avery hesitated. "They're going." "Good. That's good. Feeling okay?" "Yeah." "Glad to hear it. I have to say it's been pretty weird not having you around for the last month. Everyone's been asking about you." "Well, it's been interesting, I will say that." "I can imagine." "I greatly doubt that," Avery thought. "Hey, you didn't happen to see Landon here today by chance, did you?" "I did. He stayed after a while with me, but said he had to drop his dad off at the airport." "Crap." Mr. Coon stroked his bristled chin. "I was hoping to catch him so I could hand off his scholarship packet." Walking to the opposite side of the table as Avery, Mr. Coons placed a weathered hand on the dusty surface and brought the pointer finger of his other hand to his forehead. "And wait a second. I think I'm getting a signal here. Something about another student of mine, yes. A student named Avery. That's right. A student named Avery who is nearly finished with her scholarship packet." Avery made brief eye contact with him while she worked and forced a slight grin. Mr. Coons had both hands on the table now and leaned forward as he spoke. "Well, help me out here, Avery." "I'm sorry, Mr. Coons. It's just that..." "Now, I know you've had a bad time lately with the accident and the hospital and everything. I totally get that. You're obviously feeling well enough to be at school, though, so that's good, right?" "Yes, the pain is pretty minimal now, so I'm happy about that, yes." "Awesome. You look like you're doing okay. Your hands still seem to be doing what you need them to." "How long ago did I give that paperwork to you, though?" I know. The deadline's in 4 weeks. That's nothing. That'll fly by like that." "I guess I'm just a procrastinator." "Come on now. Don't label yourself like that, Avery. You're not. You've got what it takes. You're the most gifted student that's ever stepped foot in this room. It would be a shameful waste of talent for you not to go to art school. You're light years ahead of the game, Avery." "You're supposed to tell your students those things." Avery blushed. "I'm not just blowing smoke at you. I really thought we were on the same page about this." He could sense there was something bothering her. Her expression was reserved and somewhat somber. "I can't imagine your mom giving you flack about wanting to go." "Well, even with the scholarship, room and board are pretty expensive." "That's true, but you've got an excellent shot for a full ride, Avery. You really do. I mean, just look at this piece you're working on right now. This is the kind of stuff you see in an art museum or some billionaire's mansion. You're more skilled than I'll ever be. We need to get moving on this. We're running out of time." Slowly lowering her hands to her side, Avery looked at her mentor in silence. He reminded her so much of her own father. The square jawline, the scruffy beard, the incessant enthusiasm, the way he cared. The low-hanging sun had now found a direct route through the classroom windows, illuminating tears as they trickled down her bronze cheeks. "Thank you for believing in me." Good grief, Avery, how could I not? With a blank expression on her face, Avery looked at the table and traced her finger aimlessly through the dust. I'm not going to apply for that scholarship, Mr. Coons. He was dumbfounded. Why? Directing her gaze toward the sinking sun, Avery bit her lip for a moment and spoke barely above a whisper. I'm pregnant. I see it's the usual for you today, commented a middle-aged male cashier with a pierced eyebrow. Yes, thank you, Avery responded as she handed him a single red rose and a candy bar. Total comes to $3.57. Here you go. Out of 5, and here's your change. Thanks, Dale. No problem. See you next week. Bye. Heading toward the grocery store exit with the rose under her right arm and the candy bar in her pocket, Avery texted her mother. Visiting Dad and Kendra. Love you. Stepping into the cool evening air, the 17-year-old began the 20-minute uphill walk from the store to the cemetery. It had been her weekly Monday ritual for nearly the last 5 years. Large maple trees lining the street swayed to and fro in the wind as she made the climb. The low hum of lawnmowers in the proximity could be heard, while the beginnings of tulips, orchids, and roses were manifesting in the residents' yards. Avery was running out of breath sooner than usual, and she made note of just how much a month in the hospital had taken out of her. No matter, though. Her destination wasn't too far away now. The sun hung low on the horizon as she arrived, enveloping Avery and her surroundings in a deep orange glow. Spotting a cement bench under a towering weeping willow, she took a seat to catch her breath, and the crisp, moist air was refreshing to her exhausted lungs. She was grateful to be outside, but the pending sunset, although beautiful, was a dismal reminder that tomorrow would be another humiliating day at school, another day of ridicule. Maybe she just wouldn't go back. Now, continuing up the narrow, crudely paved road, she spotted the familiar secluded nook. This place was one of the few she could go to think, and although the view it afforded wasn't overly appealing, it was a view nevertheless. Avery felt she could discern more clearly the true nature of things from here. She had even developed a sort of kinship with the decaying cityscape in the distance. In her silent oasis, she had watched it deteriorate by degrees over the years. It seemed to follow the same course as a human life, its youthful pillars inevitably crumbling with the unforgiving passage of time. The myriad of buildings in the distance cast long shadows over the outskirts of town, much like those created by the sea of lifeless tombstones that Avery currently took solace in. This was Avery's favorite time of day, for the imposing shadows seemed to empathize with her. These dark, sprawling shapes, somehow more than the grave markers themselves, represented a void that truly understood her. Pulling the chocolate bar from her pocket, she placed it at the base of a shiny red marble gravestone. I love you, Dad, Avery whispered. She gazed longingly at the letters engraved in stone. Richard Stewart, husband, father, friend. November 4th, 1495 to July 2nd, 1532. From a distance, the groundskeeper noticed Avery had arrived and was very much accustomed to the candy bars being left. Generally, the hunched-over old man will leave it there for a couple of days and then throw it out with the countless other items routinely left in cemeteries. As he leaned on his shovel and watched her, he reflected on her consistent visits. Although some graves were visited with some frequency, once a week was definitely outside the norm, and such a young person by herself, week after week, it was rather remarkable. How he would have loved to have a conversation with her, but naturally, she didn't know sign language, so all he could ever do was wave hello and goodbye. How he appreciated this thoughtful young woman's visits. They were a constant reminder to him that people could be knit together in love, even when death insisted on getting in the way. As the sun bid farewell over the horizon, Avery walked a few meters to the east and traced her finger along the words on a simple granite gravestone, which words, according to Allison, had been Kendra's last. Avery, I love you, even now. How Avery longed to have memories of this remarkable woman, but all she had to go on were stories she'd heard from her parents. A refugee from India's worn-torn southern reach, Kendra had managed to travel halfway around the globe for a new beginning. Life had not been kind, and Kendra arrived in the Western Republic with one possession: an unborn child. Starving, sick, and homeless, she was taken in by Allison, who discovered her nearly unconscious at an inner-city bus stop. Over the following months, it had been heart-wrenching for Allison and Richard to learn of all that Kendra had experienced throughout the years. They both grew to appreciate and love this mysterious dark-skinned beauty from the southern reach. She was so gracious and kind, always doing anything she could to help the stewards with housework, yard work, and errands. To their deep dismay, however, Kendra departed almost as abruptly as she had arrived. Suffering a serious stroke 2 weeks before her due date, she died during an emergency C-section, leaving little Avery to carry on the new beginning her young, courageous mother had only just begun. Avery affectionately looked at Kendra's name, emblazoned in cursive on her right forearm, and smiled. I wish I could have met you. You sacrificed everything for me. I don't deserve it, but thank you so much. Pressing the delicate flower petals to her lips, Avery laid down the rose and departed. As she walked across the soft velvet grass, her calves glistened in the sun, the left bearing a small tattoo of Richard's name, and the right displaying Allison's. She could see the old groundskeeper trimming a row of lilac bushes in the distance. She waved goodbye, which he noticed with a warm smile and promptly returned the gesture. That simple, friendly human interaction was remarkably comforting for her on this particular evening. She had been feeling so completely alone, and yet an elderly man who couldn't speak had somehow made her feel like she mattered.